Today, I would like to talk to you about the importance of wearing your seatbelt each and every time you get into the car. Did you know that 40,000 people die each year in car accidents? That is the leading cause of death for people under the age of 35. Safety belts can prevent death in about half of those accidents. If everyone wore their seatbelts, we would have 20,000 more mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, friends that would still be here today. I'd like to start with telling you a personal story about someone in our group. We have a great Thursday group here in our communications class. We enjoy meeting together and sharing ideas and thoughts. We have come to enjoy and respect one another. Let me tell you a story that might have changed our group dynamic. In March of 2012, Sabrina was engaged to be married. She was working 2 jobs and she was taking 12 credits that semester. To say she was burning the candle at both ends would be an understatement. She had stayed out late with her fiance, even though she knew she had to get up early the next morning to attend classes. By the time she got home and got in bed, she only got 3 hours of sleep that night. She was tired, and on her way home from classes that day, she struggled to not fall asleep. She drove a good distance. Part of it was on a highway lined both sides with trees. And even though she fought, she did doze off and on, but was able to stay awake for the most part. She then drove by another part of the highway that was close to water. And again, she fought off falling asleep. But as she came upon a newly plowed, about acre piece of land, she fell asleep and rolled her car 3 times. She ended up not getting hurt very seriously at all. She had her seatbelt on, and she said if she wasn't wearing her seatbelt, she probably would have been ejected from the car and not survived. Because she had her seatbelt on, Sabrina's injuries were minor. She said she has a small scar above her left eye, and 2 or 3 of her vertebrae were damaged, but they don't even bother her anymore. Everybody was pretty much amazed she didn't even have a concussion. Sabrina knows she's alive today because she was wearing her seatbelt. Well, if that story won't convince you, let's talk about what happens to our bodies in an accident. In the article, Seatbelts, Why You Should Buckle Up by Nancy Montgomery, she helps us understand why it's so important to buckle up. There's 3 parts to a crash, and she says if we learn what these 3 parts are, it might help us better understand. First, there's the car's impact with whatever it hits. And the brief seconds it takes for the car to crumble and come to a stop, the passengers inside are still traveling at the same speed the car was going before the crash. If they're not wearing seatbelts, the passengers keep hurtling forward until they collide with some part of the vehicle or another passenger. That's the second stage of the collision. Even after the passengers' bodies have come to a stop, there is a third collision as their internal organs slam against their bones or other organs. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, known as NHTSA, this internal collision often causes the most serious injury or death. Think of a person's head hitting the dashboard. While there might be a bruise or a bump on the outside, it's the brain colliding with the inside of the skull that can cause the real damage. Seatbelts are designed not only to keep you from being thrown from the car, but also to absorb the impact of the crash where your body can best withstand it. That is the bones of your hips, shoulders, and chest, according to the NHTSA. Seatbelts also stretch slightly so your body doesn't stop as abruptly, and they prevent you from colliding with a part of the car or with another person. A report from the University of Washington found that when used together, automatic shoulder harnesses and lap belts reduce your risk of death in a car crash by 86%. That's a huge number. James Madison University also notes that seatbelts, when used properly, reduce the number of serious traffic injuries by 50%. So now let's talk about the proper way to wear your seatbelt. The Oklahoma State University tells us this about the importance of wearing your seatbelt. Properly worn means that both straps snugly fit to transfer the impact of the collision to the parts of your body that can take it, which we discussed earlier, your hip bones and your shoulder bones. With just the shoulder strap on, you can still slide out from under it and be strangled, while the lap belt alone doesn't keep your face from hitting the steering wheel. Montgomery also says that simply buckling up isn't enough. If you don't wear your seatbelt the way it was designed to be used, you won't be fully protected in a crash. Put the lap belt across your lap and pelvis area, never across your stomach. The buckling the seatbelt across your stomach can cause internal injuries in an accident. Your shoulder belt should be snug across your collarbone and chest. Don't wear it under your arm or behind your back. If you're at least 4'8" and weigh at least 80 pounds, the seatbelt should fit you just fine. Adults shorter than 4'8" or children need to use a booster seat so that the shoulder harness and lap belt will fit according to the NHSTA. Now, let's look at a few more statistics, and these are from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. These are who are less likely to wear a seatbelt. Of teens aged 13 to 20 that died in crashes in 2012, approximately 55% of them were not wearing seatbelts at the time of the crash. Adults aged 18 to 34 are less likely to wear seatbelts than adults aged 35 or older. Men are less likely by 10% to wear their seatbelts than women. Adults who live in rural areas are 10% less likely to wear their seatbelts. That means only 78% of them use seatbelts than adults who live in urban and suburban areas, which is about 87% use. Seatbelt use is lower in states with secondary enforcement seatbelt laws or no seatbelt laws at all. Now, when you're a rear seat person, they are less likely than front seat passengers to wear a seatbelt, making them more likely to injure themselves or other passengers in the crash. So let's just recap. We've talked about the number of deaths caused by auto accidents, how many could be prevented if people wore their seatbelts. We've heard the story of how someone in our own class would not be here today if she didn't have her seatbelt on, and we learned what our bodies go through and how to properly wear a seatbelt. Let's make a decision today to beat the statistics and choose to buckle up each and every day. Thank you.